Picture yourself at the edge of a high diving board. No matter how many times you've jumped off, you still feel those little butterflies before you take the leap. Why is it that no matter how many times we've done something before, we often feel that twinge of fear before jumping in? It's because fear is wired into who we are. But that doesn't mean it has to stop us from achieving our goals. Because we choose a different path. And that is why the afraid don't get paid. Hey everybody, super excited to do another podcast episode. This one is going to be so good. I have a special guest on here who isn't a client, but a good friend of mine, Gina Knox. Hi, Gina.
Hi. I'm
How
so
are
excited.
you?
I am doing super great. I'm really excited to be here and talk about money.
Yes, you're my first guest. And I was like, knowing that this is a podcast about not being afraid to get paid, we have to talk about knowing your money, smelling your money, feeling your money, all in your money, being in your money. And you are a money coach. You're an expert in this. I would love for you to tell my audience a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Absolutely. So I am Gina Knox, aka Money's Mom. That is what my clients call me. And I am a financial coach for entrepreneurs. So really what that means is I get all up in my client's business and we look at all of their money, their business financial systems, their personal financial systems. And really my goal with my clients is to make sure that they're hitting their business goals and their personal goals. And a lot of times what that looks like is figuring out how to get them to pay themselves more and ultimately save a crap ton of money.
Yes.
I always talk about, I want my clients to hit 100K banked, but really it's way beyond that. I'm trying to set up my clients to be multi-millionaire rich grannies. So that is my MO.
I love that. Yes. Rich grannies vibes. So one of the things that I really love about the work that you do, Gina, is it's so clear what the intent is, but like you said, it's bigger than that, right? Your program, Six Figure Saver. I mean, that name is just so bold and beautiful and abundant. How did you even get into this work and sort of decide that, like, initially, I want to help my clients save 100K?
Yeah. So a little backstory on me. I went to design school. I went to art school and I became an interaction designer. And when I graduated college, I got into tech. My first big girl job was working at QuickBooks, which is small business accounting, as a design researcher. So really what that means is that my job is to interview entrepreneurs, CFOs, accountants, bookkeepers, and work with our design teams and our product teams and our engineers to really make sure, okay, we're building QuickBooks, right? But we're not entrepreneurs. So we don't really know what that's like. It's my job to go out and interview those people to make sure that we are actually building the things that they need, right? From their perspective. And actually, I'm still in that job. So I do both. And part of that, it's really cool, right? Because I get to help influence QuickBooks, the product. And that influence goes out to millions of customers around the world, which is awesome. But you think, okay, I get to influence millions of people, but in a smaller way, right? Maybe we're making a flow better. Maybe we're making the onboarding better. So it's not really changing their lives overall, but it is making their lives easier. So I thought, cool, I get the global scale, but not as much impact. And I really was having this yearning to have like enormous impact, but on a smaller scale. So almost the direct inverse to what I do at QuickBooks. So I started working with people one-on-one, and it is just the most fulfilling thing to have someone on the phone with you and you see their eyes light up when they understand a concept or they no longer feel stupid about money, because so many people feel dumb, which is like awful. We're all smart people, but this stuff is so complicated. So I think I just got a little bit addicted to that feeling of helping people hit some really, really big goals. And I guess that's where it all started.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize. I know you talk about a lot of design and that's what you went to school for, but I also thought you had some experience with like finances, accounting. This is just right? It became, or it's more than just a passion, clearly. It's a business now, but you don't have a direct background in it.
No, I don't have any like financial formal education.
Wow.
But I guess my education came from QuickBooks because I've been working there for 4.5 years now. I've interviewed over 400 entrepreneurs, accountants, CFOs, bookkeepers. And it's really my job at QuickBooks to understand accounting, to understand like the stringent accounting practices and then translate that in a way that entrepreneurs understand. And so I guess like my work at Intuit has been it's almost like a whole bachelor's degree, right? 4.5 years. That's more than a college degree, just focus on this topic. So I guess it's just been on the job training.
And that's just as valuable, if not more, because it's real life. That's one thing about, getting a degree. You didn't have to go apply it. You've been applying it since day one. That's really amazing. I think you are such an amazing example of you don't have to be certified per se. And that's not literally every niche, but this is a great example. This is something that you turn into a business, but it's not necessarily your direct background. And a lot of people that I work with always feel like they have to have, come from it and, been doing it for like 10 years. And it's like, no, you don't. So I really love that. This is such a good story. And so, yeah, we're talking about money. We're talking about entrepreneurship, and clearly you help people. At least the big baseline goal is save 100K. Let's talk about like what is required to do that. Because the whole idea of this podcast is like getting intimate with your money. What is your thoughts? Or what are your thoughts on what it even means to be intimate with your money? And I'll share mine.
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I think being intimate with your money, right? Let's think about being intimate with a lover. It requires confidence, right? It requires confidence not only in yourself, but it requires confidence that your lover is going to take care of you, that you're in a safe space, that you're in a secure space. And I think that's what is required of intimacy. And I think the same is with your money, right? Are you in a safe place with your money? Like physiologically, psychologically, are you reciprocating that to your money? If we almost like create a character out of your money, and how do we create? And if you're not, how do we shift that relationship so that it is safe and secure and confident, and you feel like there's an actual partnership there where you are getting what you need and your money's getting what it needs. Again, if we like create a character out of it.
Right.
And I know that's general, but I really think it is taking it to this emotional place, because you will find, man, when we talk about money, money is not the thing that we usually end up talking about. Money is the gateway to talk about all the other things that are happening in your life.
Yeah.
And so that is why it does require that safety and that security.
That is so good. I love the example of thinking about it as like being in a relationship or having a lover. And I think to even take that one step further, it's like to be a good lover, you have to be able to meet yourself. Or there's like a famous saying, I can't remember who it's by, but people can only meet people as far as they have met themselves. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with money. You can only go there and be intimate with it if you're willing to do that with any other place in your life. Right. Or
absolutely,
with your own feelings, being aware of your own feelings, being aware of what you deeply desire. If there's a lot of blocks or trauma, negative experiences there where you don't either have that awareness or that willingness and put in that effort to be in a relationship with yourself, well, that's also why it's hard to then be in a relationship with money. And then, of course, we know money is so intimate. And so I see it also, too, as like the money is mirroring also how you feel about yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Money mirrors how you feel about yourself. I mean, that's what I said, right? Like I talk to my clients about money and then we end up talking about their childhood because it's not about the money. It's that your money is reflecting back how you feel about yourself, the beliefs you hold about yourself, what you're able to do. Oh, that's a big one. What do you believe you are able to have?
Yes.
And all of that is reflected in your money. And until you go there and work through those things, your money will continue to reflect that. And so when we talk about six-figure saver, when we talk about hitting 100K bank balance, we have to talk about, how do you feel about yourself? How do you feel about someone like you having that amount of money? What blocks are coming up for you? What resistance are you having to even that idea? Because we can all say on the surface, oh man, I want to be rich. I want to have a lot of money.
Yep.
But actually, I've talked to so many people who have had the experience, especially in entrepreneurship, of selling a lot, $300,000 years, $500,000 years, $1 million years. And they come to me and say, Gina, I have nothing to show for it because I did not have the capacity emotionally to have that money in my accounts. And they realize that they want to heal that because they know in order to get to that next level in their personal finances or in their business, they need to go back to that and heal whatever is blocking them there.
That's so powerful. I love that because, you know, same as being a sales coach and helping people generate the revenue. It's so easy to be like, I want to hit a 10K, 50K, 100K month. I want to increase my number of clients and my bottom line revenue. But then it's like, well, what do you want to save and have and own? What do you want to have left over? And how or where are you on that journey to actually being able to hold and keep the money? Oh, so good. And I think that brings me to my next topic of like, well, one, you work with people who aren't entrepreneurs too, right? Like you still have clients who are in corporate, right?
Oh, yeah. So I also work with people in tech. I work with people who are side hustlers.
Okay.
So here's my philosophy, right? It doesn't really matter, although it does, but it doesn't really matter how you make your money. Personal finances are the same regardless. And actually, this is something that I work with my entrepreneurs to even get to this point because a lot of them don't believe that. And it's because a lot of them are not paying themselves like a normal person. And so they're like, how could it be the same as if I had a 9 to 5?
Right.
And so first step is like, okay, well, we need to get you to paying yourself regularly because A, you deserve it. And B, we want to get you to a place where even if your business is like having big sales months and then small sales months, and you know, that's the normal cadence. We want your personal finances to be steady. So once we get to that place, then personal finances are actually very similar. We need to talk about saving. We need to talk about your budget. We need to talk about paying off debt. We need to talk about investing for retirement. And all of those topics are kind of irrespective of how you made the money.
Right.
And so, yeah, I work with both. I definitely focus more on entrepreneurs because I think that they have more levers to pull. Where people who are in a 9 to 5, we really only can work on their personal finances. We can also talk about negotiating your salary, but it's less of a topic versus entrepreneurs really have to hone in on their business finances in order to get to the point where we're even talking about their personal finances. So I find it as a coach, like more of a challenging problem, which is exciting. And it's also like fun to systematize. It's fun to blow people's minds and say, no, you can have a steady paycheck even if your sales are inconsistent. Like we can absolutely do that for you. And I find that really, really fulfilling.
You know, that still blows my mind after building a business that generates a lot of income. Like I've been paying myself pretty much from the beginning, not even in a financial, like, intellectual way of like, oh, like, let's take out a specific amount. I was just like taking money out of my account and like, I'm going to pay myself. I'm not going to just spend it on expenses or have it in the business savings. I'm going to live off this. And so I've done that from the beginning. But even hearing you say this of like, no matter what you're bringing in from your business, your goal for your clients is for them to pay themselves regularly, consistently. And I'm like, wait, what? Part of me still like, feels, even though I pretty much do that now, I guess it's the uncertainty of what can happen in business. How do you help your clients deal with that? Like they might have, I'm sure you work with clients who have consistent revenue, but there must be thoughts behind like, but what happens if it isn't? Like, what do I do then? Right? Because let's be real here. What do you say to that? Or how do you deal with that?
So there's kind of like three buckets of entrepreneurs, and there's a different strategy for each. The first bucket is someone who's really just starting, or they're a side hustler, and maybe they have $100 in sales one month, zero sales the next, 500 the next. So they're really under the 20K per year mark. And to them, I actually don't recommend paying yourself consistently because it's very hard to make that work and it can cause more stress.
Of course.
So for them, I recommend take 50% of every sale that you make so that you at least get in the habit of paying yourself from day one, because that habit will serve you as your sales scale. So that's group one. Group two is, and this depends on your cost of living a lot. So this is kind of based on my worldview, but adjust it to your own cost of living. They're kind of at this point where they're making like $1,500 one month, and then $900 the next, and then $3,000 the next. And maybe they're at like 50 to 80K per year, but they're not making enough to pay the business's bills and pay their take home bills, right?
Yeah.
So they're still living off of savings or credit cards, or they still have a 9 to 5 or a part-time job that's supplementing their personal bills.
Mm-hmm.
To them, I say, choose a baseline salary that you feel comfortable that you could afford every single month, regardless of what happens. Yeah. Usually that's like $200, $300, $400. You're like, you know what? I feel comfortable. I could always pay myself that.
Yeah, that's manageable.
Right. Then automate it. Turn it on. Whoa. Like, I want to know what day of the month that's going into your bank account. And I know a lot of people get that reaction. They're like, I don't know if I like that. And I'm like, we got to push you to go there. And so then what happens is, at this point, when you have higher sales months and you have money left over from your business expenses, your personal take-home salary, and other things, then there's like two options. Take the extra money and put it in a business savings account so that when you hit those low months where you can't cover everything, you're not having to cut your personal salary. You pay your personal salary from your business savings that was made from your higher months. Once you feel like that business savings is at a point where you're like, I'm consistently putting more and more into savings, like every month, then I'm like, cool, it's time for a raise. Like, you can afford to pay yourself more as a baseline, or it's time for a bonus. Like, what you want to pay yourself a $3,000 one-time bonus? That's also on the table. So there's a system, right?
I love this.
So that's group two. Group three is at a point where they're making over six figures. Again, this is based on my worldview and cost of living. They're making over six figures. They're probably hitting at least $5,000 per month, if not more, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a month. And they might even have a team at this point. And so at this point, I'm like, you need to make a livable wage. You need to pay yourself consistently every single month as the CEO of your company. And it needs to not only cover your personal bills, like your rent and your groceries, it needs to be a living wage where you have enough money left over to pay for going out to the movies, to pay for vacations, to put money into savings. Like, we're now at the league where you are making a salary.
Yeah.
And your team is also making a salary, however you determine that, whether that's hourly, whatever that is going on. The same system applies. When you have higher sales months than your expenses, that goes into a savings account. When you have lower sales months than your expenses, then you take from your savings account to cover your bills and your salary and your team. And then I recommend either quarterly or biannually looking at that savings account and saying, do I have enough to pay myself a bonus? Am I at the point where I can give myself a sustainable raise? Or, if you do profit sharing with your team, is it time to pay out the team an entire bonus? And I recommend doing that quarterly or biannually, just because at this point, your business is at a point where it's like a full-time thing.
Right.
So that's kind of how I talk about it. And you'll see, like, basically from group 2 and 3, it doesn't matter if you have low sales months. The high sales months are paying for the low sales months. And it's all about regulating that cash flow, but it's also about regulating your nervous system, because like you said, like, oh, that feels so scary to turn on these automatic transactions. It does. So you need to regulate your nervous system and regulate your cash flow in order to make this happen.
Wow, Gina, I feel like we should just pay you for that information. Like that was like a crash course in what it's like to work with you, download your brain / masterclass. Ugh, I love that. And I think that's going to be really helpful for my audience because a lot of them operate out of like, give me what I need to be doing, or at least in a general way. What can I, sort of like a roadmap, right? And just listening to hearing you, I'm like, oh, pretty good. The one thing I will be very honest is I have not automated my money. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, Candace, let's do a little coaching. What is holding you back? What's holding you back from clicking that automatic transaction button?
Oh my God, it's definitely, it's like, but what if something happens next month and I don't pay myself this much? Or,
okay, let's
right?
Go there.
Or I need, right?
Let's go there. Okay, Candace, what if that happened? What would you do?
I'd probably, if I'm being reckless and really buying into my fears, I am going to take off the automation. That's one side of Candace. But if I'm like, okay, I don't have to spend this money. I have abundance in money, right? Like in ways of like my stuff is covered, my basic needs, I'm good, right? There's still money left over in business savings. There's still money in my personal, like, I think I'm okay. I think I'll be okay.
So you're saying to me that even if you have the money in the savings to cover it, you're like, oh, I don't want to touch that. That's like your initial response.
Yeah, that is the initial response.
Even though you actually have it.
Exactly.
It's not like your bank account is zero.
Right.
It's just that you didn't make enough sales that month to hit that number, let's say.
Exactly. Right.
So
and then worry about future fluctuations, which I do earn, kind of cyclical in that way. Not as I launch, I'm evergreen, but people come in, people go, right? It's natural. So I'm like, I think also I worry, like if I keep, or at least for me, I have a lot of, I like nice things. So I'm like, I want to keep paying myself more.
It's funny to me because whenever I take my clients there, especially with this one, they come up with solutions, right? You're like, okay, I could turn off the automatic transaction or I could use my savings. And I'm like, okay, so those are two solutions. So what's stopping you from turning on the transaction? Because here's the other thing too, right? We can always turn it off. There's no shame in just turning it off if it doesn't work anymore, or if we need to change the date of the month because of when your payments hit or whatever. But people get so caught up in, if I turn on automatic transactions, it's permanent. Like I can never turn it off. And then that causes this fear spiral in your brain. And as we know, when we're operating out of fear, we don't make creative decisions.
Exactly. I love that. It's so true.
And that's what I was talking about earlier, right? Like we can talk about the systems all day long, but you also need to regulate your nervous system in order to make this stuff work. And that's where, like, yes, money systems and strategy and all of that stuff, but we need to talk about your mindset and we need to talk about your fears and we need to be bold and we need to go there. And that's, a lot about what your podcast is about, right?
Okay, now Gina, don't use it against me. No, I'm joking. I totally agree. And I'm like, you know what, Gina, they're so right. It's the same thing with my clients of like, I tell them, okay, let's go there. What happens if you don't make a sale next week or this or that? Like you're so resourceful to figure it out. Most people are when we just take a moment to pause.
Absolutely.
So literally gonna go turn it on after this and I'll let you know that I did it. Yay.
Heyo.
I'm like, and part of it is like, oh, I'm also just being a little lazy. Like, oh, it's not, I have to go like move a few buttons and sign a few waivers. Okay, it's not that bad. Like, just do it, right?
What waivers do you need to sign? It's just a button.
But anyway. But I think that's what's so funny is we can make up or create reasons why something is so hard, right? My mind is like, no. I love that we're having this conversation and there's a little mini coaching there so you can see what we all go through.
It happens at every level. Every level. I work with $1 million entrepreneurs who have the same struggle. It's not about how much money you make. It's like, how are you thinking about it and what's coming up? And let's make sure that we address it. Because we don't want to hold you back because of a silly fear. Not silly, but a fear that could be easily overcome in 30 seconds.
Of course, right? I know what you mean. Can we talk about that? Because a lot of my clients believe that people, typically six figures or more, don't have mindset issues or somehow aliens and they're so different. And once they start to realize it by working with like me or other people they see, or some of my clients then work with other people who have made six figures, they're like, wait, they're all the same. Like, I would love for you to share like some, you just mentioned one, but like what are some other common things that people who make a lot of money go through, as well as someone who may not have made a lot of money, that you see in your day-to-day working with people?
Okay. When you hit six figures, nothing changes about the way you feel about money. When you hit $1 million, nothing changes about the way you feel about money. When you hit six figures in savings in a bank account that you can look at, nothing changes about the way you feel about that money. And the same for hitting $1 million.
Because I didn't get there yet. So I'm like, but really? Are you sure I'm not going to feel a little more safe? No. Like,
nope. Because what is the difference between 90,000 and 100,000? You're not going to feel more safe with 100,000.
I love that. That's a great example.
We put these milestones on these pedestals where we're like, oh my God, my whole life is going to be different. No, it's not. And it will feel different along the journey. I'm not saying that you won't change throughout the journey, but there's not this light switch that you turn on once you hit a certain dollar amount. Believe me, I've been through a lot of milestones. Nothing changes. But what you can do is create sustained change over time. And what I would actually ask you is, if you feel like hitting a certain milestone is going to make you feel different, I would ask myself, A, how do I feel now about my money? And how do I want to feel about it? Like if I were to hit 100K, how would I want to feel about that? And then the third question is, how can I start creating that feeling now?
Right.
How can I start feeling secure and safe and confident and powerful and all the things that I want to feel when I hit that milestone? Because the reality is that feeling is created over time. And so you need to start now. It's not going to happen when that number hits your screen. Real talk.
Real talk, yes. And this is the same things I tell my clients too when it comes to generating the money. It's the same thing with saving, right? They're like, once I hit $5,000 in sales, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna feel different. So, Candace, you don't understand. And even the clients that really, they really test me on this and push me are like, but if I'm barely covering my bills now, like I am gonna feel different. I'm like, you can start feeling that way right now. I'm like,
I will say there is like a level to this, right? If you are like in financial distress, like you are getting evicted or you can't pay your bills, or like, we're not talking about that.
Right. That's like basic need, truly like fight or flight. But
exactly.
It's that you will feel different, right? You're going to have a house over your head, right? Like, of course. But I know we're talking about like the people.
Right. Beyond that point where you're still like covering yourself for the most part, that is where you start seeing diminishing returns, I would say, of the more money you have or the more money you make. And really where you're going to feel the biggest changes is when you work on that inner self, on those feelings, on creating those feelings now.
That is so good.
So Candace, can we just talk a little bit too about how entrepreneurship really challenges us financially? Like it really it's a big challenge, because if we think about, the traditional 9 to 5, you go through the interview process, you talk about your skills, you rarely even talk about money then. And then maybe they make an offer, maybe you negotiate a little bit, and that might be uncomfortable and stretch your boundaries, but you do it. Then you get hired and they pay you. And literally you never talk to your manager about money pretty much ever again. Maybe you talk to them like during your reviews, if you're getting a raise or a promotion, but it's on the day to day, you're not thinking or talking about money. You're thinking about your work. In entrepreneurship, you are asking for money every day. You're making sales.
Right?
You're thinking about, how do I spend my money? How do I make sure I have money left over? And it's like a completely different experience. And it can be really jarring for people who are new to entrepreneurship to feel like, oh my God, like I have to think about money all the time now. And I never really had to do that before. Like, did you feel like you ever went through that?
Oh my God. Yes. I always tell people I have been made for entrepreneurship since I was like 6 years old. I always knew I would be my own boss, create businesses, and had been working on that from like that age. And as of course, as I got older and really started understanding money, and started making it, like one of my most profitable businesses was Airbnb. I think I was like 18. Even then didn't hit me because I was still in school. And I was like, oh, this isn't real yet. It's so funny. Or, oh, I still have a job. And when I truly then, left corporate and I'm in this for real, right? Like I am the plan to make the money. I just no one could have prepared me for what I would go through, what I'm going through now, and how I've grown around my identity around being a money making coach and someone who feels and thinks they're responsible, and even shifting the beliefs around what that even looks like, because a lot of what we've learned around money is based off of a skewed version of what we've been taught, or societal standards, and a lot of it is not healthy, as we all know. And this could be like 3 podcasts on its own, my money journey, but it's so true. I am a natural seller. I love it, but make no mistake, it's not easy to ask for money. It's not easy to sell. I might be good at it, and some people, they want to fight me on that. Candace, you said you've been natural and good at it your whole life. It's still not easy. I have to prepare for sales calls and self-coach, right? Or
absolutely
run a business and a team and all of that. So it's definitely changed. What about you, especially because you're doing this thing in business and you're crushing it, but you also still have a job, at least, for now, right? How does that feel for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like for a long time, so I've had my business for over 2 years now. I feel like for a long time, I was like not taking it as seriously because whatever, I have my 9 to 5 salary. This doesn't need to cover my bills. And I didn't have that urgency. And I'm sure a lot of people who are side hustlers also feel the same way. You don't have that urgency. I will also say I don't hate my job. Like I think that this is the best corporate job anyone could ever have, period. So I'm not like trying to escape.
Right, yeah.
So I have that urgency. And I think for a long time I was like, well, this is like, it's not that I felt like it was a side hustle, but I was not so pushy in making sales. I was not as I guess serious about it.
It's a different identity, truly.
It's all about your identity. And when I decided, like, actually, I really would like to do this full time, it kind of flipped a switch where I was like, okay, I need to make more. I need to pay myself consistently. I need to practice what I preach. And I think that it's been interesting how just that identity shift has shown up in my money. Since I made that identity shift, I've blown past my income goals for 2020. And I think that like this comes to this idea I have around your money and and your business is a mirror of what you think about yourself. And so if you don't do that identity work, if you don't do that self work, then it's going to show up in your business.
It's so true.
And it comes back to that idea, right? You never have to do that in a 9 to 5.
No, I'm worried about what I'm going to eat at lunch and, maybe my assignment. But I'm not thinking, oh crap, let me go do the inner work about my money,
Right. And with entrepreneurship, it's like a requirement. In order to build the business that you want, you need to build the version of you that runs that business. And I think that that's where like a lot of it takes us by surprise, especially with our money. And so it does take a lot of that identity work. And I've definitely gone through that with my journey. And I feel like I'm starting to come into that like full-time money making coach identity now.
I love that. I love it. I feel like, am I even there yet? Ooh, I don't even know. Like, no, I am. I'm full-time. But again, there are moments where I'm like, holy crap, can I do this? And I think a part of the identity work is also the practice of coming back into yourself and the belief. It's not just like it's set it and forget it. You did the work and now you're healed and you're never going to have moments. And I think that's also like partially what people don't understand or misconception about identity work.
Oh, yes.
Deeper work with money it's a practice.
And on that note about, the different moments, I think coming back to what we said earlier about is hitting 100K, is hitting 500K, is hitting these milestones going to make me feel different?
Yeah.
I think that, like, I still stand by, it's not going to make you feel different, but it does unlock new challenges. Like you can think, oh, I'm healed, I'm good, I'm done. And then you hit a milestone and you're like, everything changes and you feel like you need to do that work all over again.
Right.
Because it really is about that identity of, does a person like me make this much money?
Yeah.
Especially if no one in your family or your circle is in that situation, it can feel really isolating, and it requires you to like reckon with that question.
Oh, that is so good, Gina. And I'm like, I'm always real, but I'm like, let's get real right now. A vulnerable moment. That's something I've been dealing with a lot this year. Like, I feel lonely in making money because no one around me understands it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my family, they've never seen a lot of, well, some have in my family, but they have nothing to show for it. So even the people who have made money, one, that's been from corporate jobs, let alone entrepreneurship. But let's not also talk about being a coach and people are like, what? But my point is, like, there's something to be said about being, call it either first generation entrepreneur or, breadwinner or whatever, that it's so important to, one, surround yourself around people who are on that same journey as you, but also not shame ourselves for what we are feeling because of the money we make. Like, can we talk about that? Because this year I'm like, it's funny, is I have the desire to continue to grow the business, of course, but there's almost like a self-sabotage and shame because I'm like, I'm doing not alone, but who is like me, right?
Yeah.
Like almost the consequences of being successful. And I think that's what we're talking about. And I think it's important to realize that it's okay if you're feeling that way, but
let's give this a name, and tell me if this feels like it's lining up for you. I think that there's a lot of survivor guilt. Like, no one in my family has made this amount of money, or I didn't come from this amount of money, or no one of my friends does this. And I feel guilty for being this successful. And I definitely see that a lot. And it's a lot of also self-shame, right? Wanting to be quiet about it, wanting to not talk about it. I mean, I even experienced this the other day when I hit 100K for this year, which is my first 100K ever in business.
Yay.
I almost didn't want to even say anything on my social media because I'm like,
are you celebrating? Are you celebrating?
I did like one little tiny mini post because I was like, okay, don't look at me, but like, I do want to celebrate this, but like, no one know, like, I don't want anyone to know. And it's this, for me, at least, this like, why me? And a little bit of this guilt and shame around the money. And yes, like, it is a first world problem, right? For sure. But that doesn't mean it's not a problem. And that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of people suffering in silence around the shame and the guilt that they feel around their money.
Exactly. Especially if they're like, I want to be humble and people are dying. Right. Like, I totally get that. And I think also too, it shows you that on the other flip side, since we both help a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs, like, you can also be a great coach or business owner and still be going through this, right? Like, you sharing your thoughts about being like, am I worthy of talking about this? You're still a great coach. You still know how to help other people. And that's something also I see when it comes to making money, having money, spending money. Like, well, if I have troubles with this, who am I to help as well?
Can we be real too?
Yes, real.
Having shame and feeling guilty about the success that you've made in your business or the amount of money that you saved or anything around that isn't helpful to anyone
at all.
It's not going to help you help your clients. In fact, you're minimizing yourself, which is going to not help your clients even more. And here's the reality that I truly believe more women need to have more money. And that's like triply true for women of color. And when more women and women of color have more money and show that, it can be such a powerful force for the community because it shows that it's possible, but also that it's normal. It is so normal for people like me to have this much money. So that means it's normal for you if you're watching.
Great.
And if we normalize that, we lift up our entire communities to make those realities possible, because people start to see that people like me do have this kind of success. And I think that that's
Yes.
where a lot of, especially for people starting out, a lot of confidence, you almost need to borrow confidence from your community. And so when we're quiet about it, it's not helping anyone. I have to
I really
remind
love
myself that.
Right? No, that's so true. And it's all about like the social impact on our community, the people that look like us, the people before us, the people in front of us. And sometimes I forget that. And I think about my reasons of why I do something. Admittedly, it's like to better myself and my family and all of that. But it's like, no, man, there aren't enough people who look like me or us or people of color, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine if I've had a lot more examples of that in my life, or people on the internet, I don't even know, right? Like perhaps where I might be. So again, to your point, I think it's so important that we do that. So important. And that it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. Getting very stoic over here, but seriously, like it doesn't end, and it's not sort of like you said about the numbers and hitting goals and the milestones. What we have goals. We all want to retire. We all want to feel safe and comfortable at the end of our life. Sure. Right. But like when we put it into perspective, especially as an entrepreneur and the ability to create income, there really doesn't need to be this rush. Can we just talk a little bit about that, especially as in the coaching industry specifically? Let's go there, of the rush and urgency to hit these income goals and like the consequences of that.
Mm-hmm. I saw something, I can't remember who posted it, who said basically like about this topic, right? Rushing to hit your goals is not sustainable. And the better path to take is to find your comfortable pace. I think I want to link that to a lot of the advice that we get, right? Is you need to post on Instagram consistently. You need to post every single day, whatever that is. And
Right.
I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That may work for someone, but you need to find your pace, because if you're always sprinting, you're going to burn out, and it's not going to be a long-term solution. So if you find your comfortable
every
pace,
day, do you?
I used to, and then I didn't. And I go through cycles. And so I'm following my natural cycles of my energy.
I love it.
And I think that goes the same for like trying to hit these income goals, right? Like, yes, there's always this big rush to like, I want to be a 6-figure coach in my first year because that person said that they hit it in their first year. And so I better do that too.
Oof.
And it's like, well, we need to look at the greater context around that, right? Like, what was that person? Where was that person living? Were they doing it full time? Did they have savings they were living off of? Do they have a spouse that's supporting them? Like, there's so many factors. And I think that we just need to learn to like give ourselves grace and settle into a pace that feels really comfortable and maybe a little bit more long-term thinking. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I agree 100%. Like people bring to me like specific examples of like, well, this person made X. And I'm like, what do you know about their life? What do you really know? Except for what you see on social media. So I get a little like simmer down. Those aren't your goals. Right? I get a little spicy there because it's so true. Like we see it, but what do we really know? And that's the other catcher. Like fast growth ain't always sweet. It can be very uncomfortable, the burnout, all of that. And so when it comes to looking at people's success, we have to be conscious of the judgments we make and the conclusions we jump to. But then from an internal perspective, I agree. And also it's like a nice dynamic to be in where you're not rushed, but you have intentions and you have goals. We're not like just meandering, doing nothing, but there's not this fight or flight, I must do it, feast or famine energy. And that's also something that I've really come into this, what it's almost going on the 4th year of my business this year, finally really believing that and feeling it and practicing it. Because don't get me wrong, there are times and seasons and weeks where I am very hyped and super bold and activated and so excited and like outdoing my goals. But then there are just other times where I don't feel like it, and I choose and know I can slow down. And that is required for most people, and okay. And then it's creating the belief that even when I'm not posting or showing up or doing whatever, I can still make money.
Right.
That's next level belief.
This is making me think. My husband asked me the other day, he's like, Gina, if you were driving a car, if your business is a car and you could add a super turbocharger to your car right now, like what would that turbocharger be?
I love that.
Thinking about sales. And I told him, I was like, I wouldn't add a turbocharger right now because I'm driving my car on the side streets still. And if I turbocharge my car, I would crash. I would kill someone. I would make a mess. So I told him, I was like, first, before I need to add the turbocharger, I need to navigate to the on-ramp of the freeway. And then I can add the turbocharger and it'll be safe. Right. And I think that that's like the idea of
that's so funny. So what's the freeway in this analogy of your business?
I don't know. I know yet, but I think there's something about like growing too fast when you are not ready can kill your business.
For sure.
And you need to almost like take these steps. And so maybe for me, the highway is like having a personal assistant and having automated onboarding systems and offboarding systems and having someone to deal with like customer support.
Right.
And if I were to supercharge right now, it would be a mess and I would drop the ball and people would get mad at me. And I mean, maybe these are just my thoughts, but yeah, to your point about like, sometimes fast growth is not it. I've seen firsthand some of my friends who burnt out because they were like sold on this idea of quantum leaps. And then they were doing it and they were like, why the hell am I even doing this? Like, I don't even like who I'm becoming. And yeah, so it's easily romanticized, but again, let's take a minute to think about what that actually means. What would it like, again, if you were to take on 20 one-on-one clients right now, you could say, oh, that's the dream. I would love to have 20 one-on-one clients, but sit down and think about that. What would that mean for your business?
Nightmare.
Oh my God, me too. And so it's like, okay, coming back, let's find my rhythm. Let's find my pace.
Right. It's funny. Because I was going to say, it's not even because I actually don't have the capacity. I actually do. And like my systems can withstand that. And I've done that before, but I'm like, I actually don't want that in this point in my life right now. I don't want to work with 20 more people right now. I actually don't. So it's like, wow, even when you can have it and it's attainable, even checking in with like, is that what you deeply desire?
Right. And I think the same goes for savings, right? Like you can say, oh, I really want $100,000 or I really want $1 million. But if I were to give it to you right now, would you know what to do with it? Or would you freak out? A lot of people would freak out. And so again, finding that natural pace in your savings as well, in your personal finances as well.
I love that. And I think that's a great question to leave the audience with. If we hand it over, if as a sales coach, I can help you book your next 20 clients, how would that feel? How would you react? And if you hit that income goal of 6 figures saved tomorrow, what would you do with it? How would you handle it? Are you in the place emotionally to be able to navigate that and be that person that has that?
Right.
So good.
And then capture those and then work on that.
Right. Yes. Oh my God, Gina, this was such a good episode. I could talk to you forever.
Me too.
I love the work that you do. Share with my audience what you have available for purchase, or what investments, how can they find you? What are you offering?
Yeah. So I love Instagram. I hang out there the most. So at Gina Knox, just my name. And really there's like 3 ways to work with me. The first way is free. I have a lot of free content on Instagram and I've done a couple podcasts, like go binge my shit. There's a lot of good nuggets in there. The second way is with my group program, 6 Figure Saver. It's a 12-month financial mentorship program for entrepreneurs who are ready to get on the path towards that first 100K and paying themselves more. I am low-key obsessed with 6 Figure Saver. And more information on my page, which is in the link in my bio on Instagram, or sixfiguresaver.com. And then the final way to work with me is one-on-one. So that is like my super high touch container. And it's really like part mindset coaching, a lot of what we've been talking about today, part like do it with me, setting up your financial systems, literally like Candace, I'm going to talk to you later about like, let's turn on those automatic transactions, share your screen, tell me what's going on and let's do it together. And then part like hitting some big savings goals. And so, yeah, I'm taking clients for November, and then Q1 2022 right now. So those are the 3 ways to work with me.
Amazing, Gina. Guys, I can't recommend her work enough, who she is as a person, as a coach, her principles. So if you guys are interested in working with her, please, please, please go find her. Of course, go follow her. And when you listen to this episode, tag us. We can't wait for this to come out. And thank you again so much, Gina, for being on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Candace. This was great.
I will see you later. Bye, Gina.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to tag me on social media. Everything will be in the show notes. And don't forget to leave a review. And when you're ready, go ahead and visit me at www.candacechatman.com/workwithme to learn more about my private one-on-one mentorship, where I teach coaches how to make selling more effective, efficient, and fun.